Yo, what's good, everybody? And thank you for tuning in to another review. If this is your first time coming to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning family member, then you already know what it is and what it always will be. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Tell somebody to tell somebody if you choose to. If not, just sit back, relax while we get into this thing. Now, I am continuing my quest to discuss not the many, but the few relationships that Moesha had while the series of Moesha aired. I've already done Moesha and Hakeem. All of these videos you can find under the playlist Back Down Memory Lane. Anything dealing with nostalgia, all of that. Check out that playlist. It might be something over there that you may want to listen to if you haven't already. So again, this is my quest to go down the relationships of Moesha, and today I will be discussing Moesha and Aaron. By far my least favorite relationship of Moesha, but I still gotta discuss it. So now, season 4 of Moesha was such an interesting moment in time because I don't know what they were doing. And I am an avid Moesha fan from the moment it aired to the moment that they canceled it to the moment we were able to watch the reruns and now that it's on streaming. I love Moesha. I loved it then. I loved it now. But season 4, I don't know what was happening. Okay. Now I'm going to get into what this video is about, which is Moesha and Aaron. But there was an episode where Moesha actually had a crush on her teacher, which resulted in a kiss. Because not only was she feeling him, but he was feeling her as well. But he couldn't do anything. Nothing could happen because Moesha was 17. Now that episode aired. His name was Channing. He ended up leaving. And then he came back on the episode where Moesha turned 18. And they tried to do a little date. I said, what is happening? What is happening over there on UPN? I don't know what was happening over there at the time. But I didn't like it. I didn't. That was one of the moments. It was some things going on in season 4 that I truly was just shaking my head to because I didn't know what the hell was happening in season 4 of Moesha. But I stuck it out because Brandy is my girl and Moesha was my favorite show. But I had a whole lot of questions. All right, a whole lot of questions. So again, season 4 was a very interesting time of Moesha, and in this particular time frame, it was where Moesha was trying to establish herself as an adult, even though homegirl was only 17. Now, at the end of season 3, we got to touch on season 3 to bring about where Moesha got this sense of confidence from. So at the end of season 3, Moesha did something drastic, which was moving out of her father's household. What led to this? I'm glad you asked. Well, Moesha a little fast ass, and she was just basically doing what any other typical teenager would do. Moesha went to a co-ed sleepover. Of course, she didn't tell her father, but Frank caught wind of it, went to the party, and made a whole ass scene. He catches Mo coming down the stairs with Jeremy, who was played by Usher. We're going to get to him next. They were coming down the stairs in their pajamas, and of course, Frank assumed that she had sex with him, which in fact she did not. All they did was sit on the stairs and have a conversation. However, when they got home, Frank and Moesha had a huge argument, and she tells him that she's moving out. Now, she moves in with Endell, and she starts dating a college guy by the name of Aaron. Now, at this time, I believe Moesha had just started her senior year of high school, and I believe that Aaron was a junior. Aaron was played by the 90s heartthrob Bryan Adams, who was fine as hell. Bryan Adams played on just about every damn black sitcom in the 90s. You could not miss his face. And he played in a lot of famous, or I would say nostalgic classic movies like The Mighty Ducks and The Sandlot. But you may have seen him on Sister Sister, of course, Moesha, Rock, A Different World, The Fresh Prince, just to name a few. Now, we were introduced to Aaron on the first episode of season 4. Which is probably the most iconic episode of the Moesha series. And that episode is entitled Moesha Meets Brandy. I ain't gonna hold y'all. I was like, what? Moesha meets Brandy? Who thought of that? That was genius. That was iconic to merge the two. I thought it was complete and sheer genius. Now, there was an iconic line as well, in my opinion, that Brandy tells Moesha while they are in her dressing room.
Thanks, Brandy. That's all right. You know, Usher be on for a long time. It takes him forever to take his clothes off.
And it is a line that lives rent free in my head. I was like, how you know that, Brandy? How you know it take Usher forever to get his clothes off, though? Little messy. I wasn't reading too much in it, but during that time that this episode aired, I literally thought that. I was like, how you know that? But I'm gonna leave it alone because ain't no telling what was going on during that time with, the whole Usher, Brandy, Monica, Maya, Tyrese situation. It was a whole lot of young, beautiful black people just dominating the music industry during that time. Now we see Aaron. Aaron gives Moesha this bracelet. Kim was supposed to get them their Brandy tickets and she does not. So Aaron poses another option for Moesha to join him at his parents' cabin in Big Bear. And you could tell she was hesitant because she's never been alone with a man before. Of course not. And she didn't know what she should do. Of course, listen to her friends. Of course, Kim gonna tell her to go. Niecy was like, I don't know, child. Like, you might want to, But it was interesting because it really showed just how immature and how non-ready or prepared Moesha was to engage in a relationship with someone who was a college man, who had certain freedoms that she didn't have. And so in this episode, it was so interesting because we were introduced to Aaron and then they broke up the same episode. I said, what is happening? What is happening with this? We didn't even get an opportunity to really like this man. We see him on our screen, then they break up. Now, what caused this breakup was he comes over to Endale's house to get Moesha. She's ready to go, but she doesn't realize that Aaron is also bringing along his frat brother because Aaron is a Kappa, and his frat brother brings along this girl who he's been seeing for a week. So they're going to go there together. So Moesha wasn't comfortable with that. Also, Moesha had decided to go to Northwestern for college, but decided to switch and change her mind and go to Stanford because that's where Aaron was. I said, oh, baby girl, no, we're not doing this. But again, Moesha was 17. She wasn't experienced and she was immature. So a lot of her decisions were based on, this is how I feel. I like him at the moment. So I'm going to change my entire life so that I could be with him. And as I watch these episodes as an adult, I just be like, to be young, dumb, and naive. I understand that. Now, I wouldn't have changed my whole entire college course, but I know I've done some things when I was young and in a relationship where it's like, now you couldn't pay me to make certain decisions that I made during that time. And I think that's just, again, it goes with the beauty of nostalgia because you can think about where you were at your life when you were in high school or in college, who you were with, some of the decisions that you made, and and you thank God for growth and change and wisdom because you could look back and say, never again. And I was like, Moesha, baby, hindsight is always 20/20. And sis, I know you was like, thank God I didn't change or I didn't deviate from my original plan. Now, even though I was not a fan of the relationship between Aaron and Moesha, I think eternally grateful for the relationship because of the conversations that it cultivated. It was such a interesting time even in my life because I think, in given my age, I think when this episode came out, I was 13 years old. So, boys start, of course, boys looking good to you. You may have your little boyfriend, your hormones raging just a tad, not all the way, but they getting there. When you get 15, 16, they off the chain. But 13 is like, yeah, things are happening. But one of the conversations that was brought up with this particular relationship was birth control. So what happens is, another thing with being young, there's an episode where Moesha goes to visit her cousin in college, and this guy slips something in her drink because, of course, he tries to do something to her. Aaron was there, and, he made sure that nothing happened, and they caught the guy, whatever the case may be. Now, again, I go back to this young, dumb, and the naivety of it all. Aaron does one nice thing for Moesha, and she believes that means they're supposed to be together again. I said, baby, That ain't what that mean. Just let that man do something nice for you. But of course, no, she's 17 years old. He did something nice. He saved me. He's my man again. He's my man, my man, my man. So the next episode, Moesha believes that she's ready to have sex. She has psyched herself up to believe she's ready for this moment. She feels that she's mature enough to handle this situation. So I remember initially watching this episode, and I remember my friends, they show you the preview after the previous episode go off, and you're like, oh my God, Moesha gonna have sex. And it's interesting because doing these reviews now, this is something I've been doing literally since the 5th, 6th grade. Me and my friends would watch Moesha, and then we would go to school, and we would talk about it all day. We would literally talk about the episode all day at school. Our lunch time, all we talked about was Moesha. It was so interesting just how poignant this TV show was to me and my friends, to me and my demographic of peers during that time. Just in my life, it was absolutely incredible. And even when I went to college, it was so funny because me and my friends, and I don't know where you guys may have gone to school, but I went to FAM, and you go to the caf to eat. It does, a lot of people are able to fit into the cafeteria. And I remember one day, me and my friends was in there, and somehow we got on the topic of Moesha, and I started singing the theme song. And within like 10 seconds, the entire lunchroom was singing the theme song of Moesha. And it was such a beautiful black moment. It was such a beautiful black moment because I was like, yes, this is culture. This is legacy. This is what this is about. This is how TV is supposed to affect you. It's supposed to take you back to that moment in time. It's supposed to bring up certain memories and emotions. And I just love that. It was such a beautiful moment that I would never forget. And for me, I hold near and dear to my heart. But anyway, going back to this, birth control situation, Moesha thinks that she's ready. One of the things that Moesha does within this episode that I think is so detrimental, and people do it now, as adults, is that we don't ask the proper questions. And Moesha didn't ask the proper questions. She was really only thinking about herself and not her partner's sexual history. Now, Moesha was a virgin, but she had no idea if Aaron was or not, and she did not inquire. Also, the fact that Moesha hung so tightly with Kim and Niecy, and they never knew that Niecy wasn't a virgin. They were so shocked. They wanted her to give up the deets about, her sexual experience and everything like that. And it was interesting because, she wasn't, but she never told them either. So that could go into a whole nother different conversations about, did Niecy trust them? Did she feel safe, exposing that part of herself with Moesha and Kim? But we're not even talking about that. So Moesha goes to the free clinic because that's what Niecy advises her to do. And as she's talking to the counselor, he's making some good points, but Moesha just continues to say, I know that I'm ready. I love him. He's the one, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, girl, you ain't ready. You're not ready, sis. You are not ready to embark on this thing. But I love how the show displayed the importance of having proper conversation and how it is not okay to be in the dark about your partner's sexual history or their boundaries. You need to ask those questions. And so when Moesha goes to Aaron's house, she talks to Dee about it. Dee doesn't want her to have sex. Frank doesn't know Moesha has birth control. She asks Dee not to tell him because he won't understand. And Dee promises. But it was also a beautiful moment between Moesha and Dee. And that's also a relationship that doesn't get talked about, I think, in the beauty that it should, because we go from when Dee is first introduced to Moesha, living in the house, whatever, she's 15 years old. And I think the show goes from Moesha being 15 to 21, and we're able to see that journey, and it's been beautiful. And I think that was the first time that, Moesha told Dee that she loved her. Dee said it to her, and Moesha responded. It was such a beautiful moment. Then we get to Moesha being at Aaron's house. She drops this bomb on him. He doesn't know that she's ready to have sex or whatever. But, he tries to get his house ready and everything like that. She's nervous as hell. And as I'm watching this episode as an adult, I instantly went back to my first time. And of course, you're nervous. You think you know what to expect. You think you know how it's going to go based on your friends telling you. And when you're young, listening to your friends about sex is the absolute worst thing you can do. Because half of the time they lying. Half of the time they're telling you about someone else's experience and not theirs. Young people having sex is an interesting thing. You know what I'm saying? But as she comes in and they're making small talk, and she thinks she hears something, and he's like, no, like there was nothing. And her concern was, what if your parents come home like when we're in the middle of it? And he tells her, my parents don't trip like that. Besides, I've had girls in my room before, and that stops everything. Then she asked, how many girls have you been with? I said, baby girl, you picked a fine time to ask. I'm glad that you did ask, but you picked a fine time to ask. And he was like, does it matter? And she wanted to know. And it did matter. How many? Aaron didn't know how many women he had been with, And so this iconic line right here, it still has me in stitches, the way that Brandy delivers this line.
2, 3, 4, 5, 10.
I don't know, okay? I mean, what difference does it make? I'm not counting.
Maybe because you lost count.
Look, I never said I was a virgin.
But you didn't tell me you were a hoe.
I said, now come on, Moesha. You ain't have to call that man no hoe. He's a young man, fine man at that. He's a Kappa. Who? That's the story, because I have my memories and stories about that. He's a Kappa. Also, because you are inexperienced, I don't believe you're in a position to call that man a hoe, because he may have some bodies and you don't. The fact that you didn't ask him, but it goes back to being young, dumb, naive, and unlearned. You really don't know until you're put into those situations. And then she realized that, well, maybe I'm not ready. And even though this was only one episode, I kind of wish they would have discussed this a little bit more, because it's like, as an adult watching it, I wondered what made Moesha believe that she was actually ready. What made her believe that Aaron was the person that she wanted to share her first sexual experience with? And what made her change her mind because she realized he had a sexual history and he wasn't a virgin? What at that point disqualified him from being the first person that she was intimate with? Like, watching these episodes, what it does is it definitely brings up certain questions for me, or it makes me go into my own mind and say, why didn't the writers elaborate with this? What's the reason the writers didn't think that was important? And even as a viewer, I feel was important. So I think, like, going back and going over these these relationships with Moesha, and this was the shortest one that she had. This was the absolute shortest one. This one and the one that's going to be up next, which is going to be Moesha and Jeremy. And even though they were not in a relationship, she did date him and she did like him. And it was Usher that played him. So, we definitely got to talk about that. But Moesha was distraught. She was distraught. And I think a lot of times, just like with a lot of young women, I'm just speaking from a woman's perspective because I'm not a man and I can't discuss it from that perspective. But just being a woman sometimes, especially being that young, almost everything you do, like I said it earlier, you're led by your emotions. You're led by how you feel, and you're really led by what you want without considering the different angles of this situation, without considering everything that comes into play when you make certain decisions. And with Moesha and this whole thing with, going to get on birth control, believing that you're ready to have sex, then changing your mind, which you can at any time change your mind. But we never really got the answers to the previous questions that I asked. What disqualified Aaron? What made you call him a hoe? And he was hurt that she did. I don't know. And I don't know too many, virgin men in school. That's just my experience. I'm talking about my circle, my people, the people that I knew during that time. But I'm like, to call that man a hoe, I didn't agree with that, but I get it. I definitely get it, especially when he couldn't give a number. I'm like, dang, Aaron, my God. But I love the fact that it was one thing that Aaron told her. He was like, we don't have to do this. And she was like, I know, but I want to, and she sounded very sure of herself. And, I think when you have shattered expectations, that could change your heart extremely fast. And I think that's what Moesha experienced, shattered expectations. But as an adult, you realize, ask the damn questions. And I mean, get very specific. I get very specific when especially if it's someone new that, you're considering, going in that step with. And you've invested time and, you've checked them out and you're enjoying their company and you want to take it to the next level. Make sure you have asked all the necessary questions. Ask them everything. When the last time you got tested? When it comes to your sexual history, what are your boundaries? What are you not going to do? Now, asking me, what I will say I don't do as an adult, damn it, don't ask me how many people I've been with, because it's none of your business. Just know that I'm experienced. That's all you need to know. And we're going to leave it at that. But again, this was the relationship between Aaron and Moesha. It was short-lived. Again, I didn't care for it, but I enjoyed the conversation that happened. And even the conversations me and my friends had at the age of 13, watching this episode, going to school, talking about it. I found out like some of my friends was having sex and I'm like, what? For real? Like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, we're 13 years old. Why are you having sex right now? You know what I'm saying? Like, the main thing I want to do is probably kiss somebody and hold their hand. If that. But probably that. But, it opened up so many conversations for me and my friends, even as we got older and the reruns would come back and we would, now I'm in high school and we're having these conversations and more people are having sex and now your hormones are out of damn control and you don't know how to control them. you know what I'm saying? And the easiest thing to do is to yield, is to give in to them, but also, understanding that abstinence is not a bad thing. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. And so, yeah, this particular relationship dynamic was interesting, but it was also necessary. And I can appreciate that. Even though season 4 was a sticky season for Moesha, I did appreciate this particular union because it created necessary conversations for parents to have with their kids, for peers to have with their peers, and it also cultivated a certain mindset about waiting and that it is okay. And then you have a character like Moesha who's being played by Brandy, and people may think, oh, well, Brandy's a virgin too because Moesha is a virgin. That may not have been true, but still, because so many girls looked up to Brandy at that time, it's like, oh, well, she not doing nothing. I don't need to do nothing. Like, it's okay to wait, and it's always okay to wait. So I love that dynamic as well. But I want to thank you guys for listening. Next up will be Moesha and Jeremy. I don't know when it's coming out, but it's going to be coming out. That's the next one. But I appreciate you guys for listening and taking the time out and commenting and subscribing, all of that good stuff. I greatly appreciate it. So until next time, I will holler at y'all later, and y'all be safe out there.